welcome to another episode of the Nut Show. As always, we are your hosts. We have the wonderful and lovely Kirsha Fox, author of The Son of Deception and The White Leaf Child. She's a homeschooling mom of four, avid gamer, and reader.
And my co-host is Julia J.K. Allen, editor, author, and author coach. She's a fantasy and horror author who loves to sprinkle magic on everything. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, and we're very excited to welcome our guests tonight. So why don't you tell us about them, Kirsha?
Yes, K.T. Anglehart is an award-winning author from Canada. A dedicated academic, she's inspired by nature and the folklore of Ireland and Scotland, which greatly influenced her debut young adult urban fantasy series, The Scottish Scrolls. We're so excited to have her.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mm-hmm.
We're very excited for the show tonight. As a fellow lover of languages, I don't think I know quite as many as you, but
I was actually very inspired by how you were introduced as sprinkling magic on everything. I wish I had come up with that myself. So.
Oh yeah, no, that's Kirsha's brilliant wording. But yes, I do love to put a little magic in everything. Even my horror stories have magic in them. So. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your writing journey. What got you started as a writer, and how has it gone for you?
Yeah, I guess I've always been a writer, storyteller, just writing in elementary school, writing in high school, joining the school newsletter, that kind of thing. I studied journalism too, so I was always on that kind of trajectory. And then I realized like creative writing is really my passion, and I loved consuming stories and I loved telling them. So just sort of started off, inspired by things like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and Narnia, and any kind of magical story, witchy stories especially. I used to binge watch Charmed. Actually, back then it was not binging. It was airing, and you just sat and watched it the whole week to watch it again.
If you were lucky, you got the series on DVD, and then you could just rewatch it as much as you want.
I did absolutely get them on DVD. So yes. So after the fact, I was binging them. But and then I was just inspired by witchy stories, and I had this pull towards Ireland and Scotland. I was very interested in the folklore of the land, and having visited, I was like just kind of, it was all consuming for me. I was just immersing myself in absolutely everything I could there, and I just kind of absorbed it and put it onto a page. So a lot of my stories are inspired by their stories, and the magic that's like in the landscape. It's really hard to explain if you're not there. And then if you're like, so the best way I could was just putting it through, making it come out through an urban fantasy novel. So The Wise One was born. And that's it. The first book takes place in Ireland, all across Ireland.
That sounds fascinating. That's definitely like a bucket list. Would love to go there. I'm sure it's just amazing in person.
Oh, for sure.
It's something else. It's I try to describe it, but it's almost indescribable.
Right. It's kind of surreal, I'm sure, the beauty of the land. Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah. When did you go?
I went for my honeymoon in both places, Ireland and Scotland, in 2017, and as I was writing the books. So it really, really helped, of course, being there and hearing the stories from the locals and from the local guides and that sort of thing. And then the first one took a few years to write. They both took a few years to write, but the first one was also acting as my creative writing thesis. So I was sort of mentored. Yeah, thankfully, because I feel like I would have never finished, when you're just like, there's no deadline. But when you have imposed deadlines, I am anyway, much more likely to get it done.
Yeah, there's something about the stress that kind of motivates us to not procrastinate anymore.
What is it with artists? Like, we just need we need people on our back being like, get it to me now.
Yes, absolutely. What a wonderful immersive experience to go there and just see it and breathe it and feel it and hear it from the locals. I was kind of laughing to myself. I'm like, oh, now it's a business expense. You get to write it off.
I tried at the time because I do freelance, so I think I possibly maybe did.
Right. Yes, doing the research.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you really loved fantasy all growing up and stuff. Is there I guess was it just your love of fantasy that has you writing fantasy as a genre, or was there any other pulls to the genre?
Yeah, I think it's just definitely the stories that come out of it and the lessons and the tropes are fun, but more than anything, it's the escapism. I couldn't understand as a kid. I'm like, why do I live in this world? Why can't I be in this one?
Right.
School of magic and stuff. So it just seems a lot more kind of bringing out the inner child and it's playful.
It is, yeah.
Of course, it can be serious, but I kind of tend to, make it a bit more youthful, I think.
Mhm. Okay. So for you, what is the most important part of writing?
I think it really is listening to I call them divine nudges. So if there's there's a theme that keeps kind of recurring in your head, or a storyline, or a character that keeps kind of like imposing themselves, don't ignore that. I'm a big fan of going with it and not plotting out every single detail of your novel. And I'm guessing a lot of people don't like that advice. Like I'm not a huge I outline loosely and then I let the rest kind of come. But yeah, I guess that's what I would say to that. I hope that answers your question.
I do think that the majority of authors that we have interviewed have described their process of that, of do a very light outline and then let your characters talk to you. Like, I think very few are 100% pantser or 100% plotter. Like, we all sort of are somewhere in the middle.
Yes. I think
Right.
Stephen King is just you just kind of I don't know if I have this wrong. I think he is completely like just let it go and see what happens.
He's very much a pantser, yes.
Oh yeah.
Which is very inspiring because it's like if you can sell that many books and just be that brilliant and just let your characters talk to you and the story get told before you even know what happens, then I mean
Right.
I think that there is something to be said though for experience, because we have interviewed a number of people who do this as a living and they've done it all their lives. And I think when you make writing your job and you do it every single day for years and years and years, I think you can just sit down and write a book. Like the rhythm,
That's
You
such
don't
a
need
good
to
way
think
of
about
putting
it.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes like your meditative state, I think, and you're just like channeling it. And I think that is magic, actually. So yeah, I'm with you.
I think the more you access, the more it flows, right? And so he's really great. I think he writes every day since his accident, and so he's very prolific. Yes, and how much he gets out that I'm very jealous of because I'm horrible with time management.
I know. I think I go through phases where I'm like on the ball, and then a couple months where I'm like, oh man, I should really get back into this.
Right. Yes. It all ebbs and flows. Are you more of a character or a plot person?
I think character first. I see them more clearly, but I see the plot loosely too. So it's sort of it's definitely you can't have one without the other, obviously, of course. But if I had to answer your question, I'm very character driven. I prefer like a good paced story. I can wait a long time if I'm really into the character and what they're doing, and and I care a lot about them a lot. I'm very critical of TV shows that rush through things. For example, like I hate pacing is number one for me. So I want to be with the character and I want to like them and care about them before I care about what happens. If that makes sense.
Right.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I would agree too. Characters are definitely like what I fall in love with, and then I want to see what happens to them.
Exactly.
Whereas like a good plot would be like semi-entertaining, but if I don't care about the characters, I'm not going to keep watching. Yeah.
That's it. There's some books that just jump right into the action, and that's fine, but then backtrack for me or something, like get me off your heads for the next chapter. I'm not a fan, and I'll often close the book and like not pick it up again if it's like the first 3 chapters are just the action has begun, they're already in it, and I'm supposed to care. I'm like, I don't.
Right. I think that's something a lot of like new authors kind of struggle with, where they have like the character, we see the character and they get news that like mom died in a plane crash, but it's like we don't care about the character yet to care enough about mom.
I'm not
But they want they want a good hook. And so they think, the bigger, the more tragic, the better the hook. But it's like, no, we have to care a little bit first. And so like getting that, into caring about the character is super important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So what do you feel like other authors might accidentally neglect when they write? What element of a good book can they absolutely not leave out?
I would say the relationships they have with the other characters.
Yeah.
I care a lot about friendships and that sort of thing. Like even if there is a light romance, there definitely doesn't have to be for me, but just dynamics are important. Like if it's kind of a lone person like throughout,
Right.
and she meets a lot of people along the way, or he meets a lot of people along the way. I mean, I like camaraderie. I like found family. That is a trope, I understand. But yeah, just don't forget about the fact that there needs to be some spark. And that's something that comes through in dialogue, of course, and just like little actions that are subtle enough to make you go, huh, why did you look at her that way? Or why did that was a nice gesture, But
Right.
those little things I find they add up and they make you kind of like lean in. So yeah, I would say don't neglect the spark between characters.
I think that's a great answer because I know a lot of times people talk about cutting things and being merciless with cutting things. And if it doesn't advance the plot, get rid of it. But there's so much to character development that should still be honored and worked on. Like these little sparks, those interactions between characters that really show the developing relationship between them that like really is part of why we love the characters. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It all goes back to character development and like the little things. Like for instance, I'll have the character just after a little interaction, just be like, and then she like tapped her nose and went boop, like just like it's. I don't know. It just makes you see how close they are.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if it kind of pops in and it feels right. I would say put it in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, in a lot of cases, that is character development. That is showing their personality instead of telling.
Right.
You don't have to have that inner dialogue of I care so much about my best friend. Well, no. Let's like have what are they like?
Meaningful interaction. Yeah. Totally agree. Do you have a favorite author and what do you think they do really well?
I do. I think my favorite author has to be Deborah Harkness. She wrote the Discovery of Witches series. And what she does well, and I admire greatly, is the historical facts that she weaves in, which I try to do as well. And my book takes place in the 90s, and it is a difficult period, the Irish Troubles, to weave into the narrative. And she just does that really well, along with I think she has a master's in biology as well, or something like that. I think she's like a history and biology major, something like that. So she uses her expertise and it just comes through and somehow works well with fantasy. And I just think she's kind of a superstar for being able to do that.
Yeah. No, it's so important to be able to kind of like weave in information and realism into the story without kind of like beating you over the head with this fact that we learned,
Exactly. She really doesn't do that. She's subtle. And I love that. I aspire to be that.
Yeah, no, I'll have to check it out. Discovery of Witches sounds fascinating.
Oh, it's brilliant. They even made it into a TV show, which I think she's very involved in. So it's actually
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice when they involve the author and really keep the spirit of the books alive in them. Yeah.
So
a lot of movies that they just change things because they're changing it because it's a movie, not a book, and then you just like lose the vibe check, and it's like not the same at all. Yeah,
definitely.
They're pretty, but they're kind of soulless. And you lose the message and the core, and and then you have a dozen so many angry fans going like, "Why did you do that?"
Yeah.
So angry.
It's happened so many times. Cornelia Funk's books, Inkheart, Inkspell,
Yes.
those books.
Mhm.
I
Okay, yeah.
loved those books. They were just charming and magical, youthful as well. Like I was younger when I read them, and
Mhm.
I don't even remember the first movie for the life of me. It just was very forgettable and just didn't capture it at all. And
Right.
that was disappointing, of course.
And I
Mhm.
understand that there's some things that like doesn't translate when you go from book to a movie,
That's
but
true.
I'm just thinking there's a particular couple movies that were particularly egregious because like the book has a quest in it, and then they changed
Mhm.
it for the movie for the sake of like being different or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, I'll just say it. I'll just throw them under the bus. The Percy Jackson, the first two
Yes,
movies.
I was thinking
Yes.
that
Like
too.
there's a
Yes.
quest already. The book is all about a quest, and then they're like, we're gonna like make them look for these random
And
things that
Hades
make
is
no
going to
sense.
be
Yeah,
comic relief now. And
right. When he's like, yeah, it's supposed to be, yeah, so different.
they
Yeah,
changed way too much. I could spend the entire hour just going off on the
railing.
Percy
Yeah,
Jackson movies.
Oh, we're
There,
so passionate about these things. Oh, have you seen the series? Did you see like the first
I
one?
am watching
I
the series. I'm
is it
loving
good?
it.
Oh
That
gosh, yeah.
Good so
is
far. I'm
good.
impressed.
They're changing
Yay!
so many things, and yet every single time you're like, "Oh, that's nice. I like that." Like,
It makes sense. Yeah.
they held on to the soul of the books with like while
It,
updating it.
exactly. If you can do that, you can change the little things. And the kids, I find the actors are just great. Like they have that dynamic, they have that on-screen chemistry, and
Oh yeah, that
it's
makes
really
a huge
characters.
difference.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So, what have
Tangent.
you learned from the writing process?
Oh, back into writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? So that's general. I'm gonna ask you to be a bit more specific.
So you have published 2 books. What do you think is like the biggest lesson you've learned from baby author starting out
Okay.
to you've had 2 books out? Like, what wisdom can you share from that?
Yes. Okay. There's so much. If we stick to the writing instead of the publishing part, we'll stick
Right.
to writing.
Sure.
It's really the progress over perfectionism, and I cannot emphasize that enough because I was like a perfectionist all my life in the sense that nothing was good enough. Anything I did
Right.
felt unfinished. No, you can't read that. It's not done. It's not good. That sentence isn't done yet. It's not great. Like I'm gonna get back to it. It's like none of that matters. You need to, if you have a book, you need to write it. And then if you feel like you need to go back, which you should absolutely go back when you're done, do so. And then that's where you put in like, that's where you quote unquote perfect it because it will never be perfect.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I think that just yeah, be grateful for the progress you make, and make that progress. Don't let yourself down. Just show up. And I think that's the main part about writing a book. If you haven't written your book, it's not because it's not good and you're discouraged. It's because you're not writing often enough, and you should be writing more. That's basically it.
Mhm. I think a lot of us struggle with perfectionism, being creative and wanting everything to be like a masterpiece, and
Oh, it's exhausting. We have to stop doing
it
this.
is.
So,
Mhm.
Yes.
in so
It's
many ways,
yeah.
like we do it in everything. I feel like when I clean the
Yeah.
house, when I have people coming over,
Yes, yes.
I've like spent 4 hours cleaning the house, and I'm like, it's still not good enough.
Yeah, no, the thing I've been trying to like pound into my brain is that there's no such thing as should, unless there's a consequence, like we should not drink and drive, right? There's
Yeah,
consequences to that. But there's really no such thing as should. Should is a preference, right? Should
yeah.
is a preference, and it's different for everyone. And so when someone
Mhm.
says like, "Oh, you should do it this way," it's like, "Well, according to who and why?" Like,
Definitely not. There's no way.
yeah,
But
Mhm.
you
as
should
long as if
be
something
writing.
gets done, then that's the way it should be done. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? If it's what works for you.
And
Yeah.
it's particularly bad for me when I read somebody else's book and it was so good, and I get so mad that like, why can't I be like that? But the hard thing is that I am comparing my rough draft to their
Right.
finished product that, that we both know like takes years to really develop
Right.
and
Mhm.
edit and go over. So you have
And
to
the
be
thing
really
is,
careful about comparison.
yeah, and we're all so much harsher on ourselves than we are on anyone else because Kirsha is one of my favorite authors, like hands down ever. And she still will beat herself up and be like, but I'm not as good as so and so. But like,
you can just imagine the brilliant authors, like the one we have before us here is, it's they'll compare themselves to someone else too. So that comparison game, it's tough to let go of. Like, I still do it, of course, but it is a poison. It's really,
it's not helpful at all. No. And like I always, try to tell myself, like, only compare yourself to like past you and see how much you've improved and moved on and progressed.
Progress over perfectionism, exactly.
But like, it was funny because you shared a meme with me, was it yesterday, about Jane Austen, and like it had like her haters like in the back of her edition of Pride and Prejudice. Tell her about it.
Yes, it was full of like really famous authors just completely slamming Jane Austen's work of like, this is garbage. Someone like said like this would be improved in, I'm not even gonna try and quote it, but like it was so funny because all of these very known prolific authors absolutely hated Jane Austen. But like if she'd listened to any of them, then we wouldn't have any of her very much beloved works. So
during my sorry to interrupt. Did you?
I was going to say, it's just really important to find your audience, I think.
Exactly. So the other bit of advice I really hate is when they say write for market or write what others are reading right now or what's trending. I think it's the worst possible thing. Hey, maybe if you want to do it just to get reads or follows, if that's your purpose, go ahead. But if you're like a writer that has a story, don't let that go because no one's gonna want to read that. Like, that's not true. You want to read it, other people want to also.
Yeah, no, and like Jane Austen is like my favorite author, so I'm like, it's very like heartening. I mean, I'm sure it was not nice for her to like read bad reviews of her writing or anything like that, but it's just like,
I wonder
if they can say terrible things about like what I consider to be wonderful, great writing, then it's like anyone can say anything about my writing, and I'm not going to take it personally.
Yeah, that's it. I've learned also to kind of grain of salt, right? But so do you think she back then, like, she would actually have had reviews to read like that?
I imagine they printed them in like newspapers, right? And
I think so. I think she would have seen some reviews. I don't know that she would have seen all of the reviews that were in the book.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure that they all matched timeline-wise with like her period of time. But I'm sure she got a lot of critique and criticism for her stuff.
Yeah.
Just because that was just how things were. They would print articles and stuff in the newspaper about things, and it wasn't like our news cycle where it's like something's big happening all the time. So
it's not like us where someone can post a review on Amazon and we see it, right away.
Right.
Oh man, I do envy those times. Like but we have a lot of opportunity now, of course. So it's great. It's a great time for writers as well, for sure. Like I don't know if maybe my book wouldn't have been published back then because of they selected 5 a year or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, but I do envy that. Like, kind of, okay, well, it's being printed and that's it. That's all. And
right, you're kind of writing more in a bubble. Yes.
No one's commenting every other second.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about like how I'm awful with time management. So we love to ask the question: how do you make time for your writing?
I just make the time during the week. I'm a morning and sort of afternoon writer. So like I'll get some stuff done in the morning, and then there's like a window of about an hour and a half in the afternoon where I'll be into it. And that's it. Yeah, because I work part-time, like off hours. I work at CBC News.
Okay.
So I'm an assistant director there, and the hours are very sporadic, which I love because I don't have a 9 to 5, so I can just kind of write when I have the time, and it always works out around that schedule. Because, like, for instance, my favorite shift is my 5 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. over there, so I have the day.
Right.
So I just it works with what I do. So I make the time in the morning and in the afternoon.
It's always nice to have variety in your day, especially if
I admire those. I admire people who have a full-time job and children and pets.
Right.
It's a tough thing to make time, but like
Right.
routine really helps. So you can find even an hour a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my big problem is I have kind of like an opposite rhythm to the rest of the world, where I feel like 8 o'clock is like I start to wake up and my brain starts to get really creative, but it's like I'm trying to wind down for the day. Because but my perfect time to write is like that midnight to like 5
really?
a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah,
ideal time for when I feel like my brain is just like firing all cylinders and all of that stuff. But it's very hard to do that and then like still function in society.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's some difficult hours you have there.
Yeah, so I've spent my whole life trying to fit into a world that is like the opposite of my ideal brain.
After 3 o'clock, I am like done. Like my brain's like,
Yeah. See, that's how I feel like until like, I feel that way until about noon. You know what I mean? Like that's when I finally like feel like awake enough to like really start doing much. But
we all have our biological clocks that we have to work with.
Right. My circadian rhythm doesn't know what she's doing.
No clue.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's random for me. My life is so chaotic. It's just like I steal little bits wherever I possibly can to cobble together these books. But
yeah,
that's amazing. Sometimes that's what you have to do. It's just like, oh well, today is the time.
Sometimes it means my house doesn't get clean, and some days it means that like maybe I sacrificed some sleep and just something else had to drop. But it was important to get some writing done.
Exactly. When you wait that uncomfortable stretch of time, it's like, ooh, it's hard. It's really hard to get back into it because you spend more time rereading what you've done, which is it's a good exercise to do for sure.
Right.
It's like, oh,
you don't want to lose the flow.
Yeah,
sure.
The flow is a thing. It is absolutely a thing.
It is, yeah. So, do you have a favorite part of writing?
I love writing beginnings and endings. I don't know if that really answers your question. If you mean process writing, yeah, okay. The middles are difficult. Like I have a hard time. I'm sure. Yeah, that's probably the most difficult to write. Yeah, I love jumping into the first chapter. It's very exciting to me, and the end, I love wrapping it up because that's what I see most clearly anyway. And then the middle, I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah, you're just trying to fill in to make your word count. Sometimes through the middle, you're just like, crap, I need 10,000 more words. What are they gonna do?
And you know what I find? It's often in like my fourth draft where I'm like, of course, that's where that connection is made. And like the middles make a lot more sense, but the first draft middle is pretty terrible. So not be discouraged.
No, that is very true. I often say like if you wait until you get a chapter perfect before you move on, you'll never get finished, right?
Don't do it.
Writing the end, you'll figure out the beginning, for sure in a lot of ways.
Yeah, if you have to write like something amazing happens here and just keep going, you got to do it.
Yeah, I make notes to myself all the time, like this is an important conversation to have, and then I move on.
Yeah, so this is where they mention the thing that's going to show up later. Like,
yeah. I write notes to myself all the time. You just have to be extra vigilant when you're editing to like remove the notes so that the reader doesn't get your notes of like, this is where the battle starts,
Yes, I have a lot of research in my prose sometimes where I'll like refer to a page online and I'll just make sure the history is correct. And sometimes it's hyperlinked. So the first time it went to my formatter, this time around, I went to my formatter and she says, did you want me to keep these? There's 2 URLs I bought. I'm like, oh my God, absolutely not. Please remove the hyperlinks.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's my nightmare is that I publish a book that has all my little notes.
Hyperlinks.
How do you deal with writer's block? You mentioned a few times getting over a few months of not writing at a time. How do you throw yourself back in there when it's been so long?
I don't give myself the big task of writing prose. I'll get over writer's block by writing ideas down. So filling out holes and writing more about a character, introducing a new character. So stuff that gets me very excited about the story, but not necessarily writing the story. And that'll do it, honestly, because then it's like, oh, the juices are flowing, oh, the ideas are coming, oh, I'm excited to write that. So I think it just sort of kickstarts that way.
That's great advice of focusing on like ideas or characters rather than worrying about getting the words perfect when you're struggling to get started again. That's really good advice.
Oh, thanks.
Like
Yeah.
you're drawing your threads back together to help you fill out.
Yes.
Drawing your line.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
great way of putting it.
No.
Yeah, very much more eloquent than whatever I say.
No, not at all. No. I really like that idea because like I feel like part of writer's block sometimes is that we're trying too hard to find the perfect words. So not going after the perfect words, that's perfect, because if you're trying to find the perfect words when you're struggling with that, it's just going to make the writer's block prolong, and more difficult to overcome.
You're absolutely right, and I used to do a bit of coaching, author coaching, and that was their authors' main problems. They had difficulty moving on because they thought they had to keep perfecting the previous chapter and stuff like that. So
right,
it's like, well, no, I mean, it's fine, it's good actually. Like let's
yeah. Well, and it's particularly dangerous because by the time you get to the end of the book, you might go back and completely rewrite those early chapters to reflect what actually happened. So, like, you're kind of wasting your time if you're trying to make everything perfect in the beginning. When you know you're going to go back and maybe even cut whole scenes,
Right. Yeah. So we always start with developmental edits for a reason. Like, it's always the big picture before we make sentences perfect. Does this chapter even happen in the end? Like, are we going to spend an hour fixing this chapter and then decide we need to cut it because it doesn't work with the story in the end? Yeah.
No, that's great advice. Like, especially if you can get yourself a developmental editor as well as a copy editor, and then of course the proofreader. Yeah, it's so important. Some people skip that step, that developmental edit.
Right.
That always changes the book for me. When I get the draft over to the developmental editor and I get it back overwhelmed by notes, and then I don't look at it for 3 weeks because I'm depressed.
Right.
But when you come back to it, you're like,
oh my goodness. Yes.
Right.
Getting my first book back from the editor for the first time, that was a humbling experience. That was like...
Oh, the stomach we have to have. Are you guys done playing with your toys? These bunnies are actively playing with their like cat toys.
Oh yeah. That's so cute. Yeah, no, it's so funny because like when you get, you think your story's perfect, but you also kind of hate it by the time you send it to your editor, and then you have to go through and read it with all of these notes, and it can be very overwhelming for sure. Yeah,
I get so tired of it. I do need a healthy break. Definitely.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yeah. That 4 to 6 week period or longer when it's with the editor is kind of like the best time, because you're like, I don't even have to think about this story that I've been wrestling with for a year.
Exactly.
It's so nice. Exactly. Nice to get that break from it. So what would you say has been your most significant writing victory so far?
Well, I think I was kind of in disbelief when it won a paranormal fiction award. I didn't even want to apply for any awards, but I was told to. So I have to say, that's on paper victory, but a personal, like a emotional victory. There's I know of like an 11-year-old at the time of the first book. She's now probably 13 years old, or I don't know how many years has passed. 13 years old, I guess. She became wholeheartedly like obsessed with the first one, and she gave me the most beautiful message. And I think I was just so happy because, well, she's an advanced reader, so the book ideally is 13 plus, of course. But so she was a very advanced reader, and it just like touched my heart because I was like that with like Harry Potter, and those teen books. And when I got into it, I was like really into it. So I was like, oh my God, I did that for someone. And I think that was the most triumphant moment.
Yeah, that somebody loved your story just as much as you have loved others' stories. That's so, that's very poignant and very, meaningful. I think that's like every author's dream come true, is like a fan reaching out and being like, your book is so amazing.
and a young person. I think it was just important to me because it's someone so young who's getting into reading, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you mean I finished it in 2 days, and something like that is like, oh my god, you finished it in 2 days. It's the most.
Right. Yeah. Highest paid compliment ever. I love that story. Congratulations on winning an award as well. That's nothing to like shake your head at. That is definitely such an accomplishment. I did. So tell us a little bit about this book. So it's award winning, but what is the book about?
Oh yeah, I guess we didn't really get into it.
Yeah. I'm super interested in hearing about it though.
It's so much more fun talking about writing advice though.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
It's so it is a young adult urban fantasy. It's a story of McKenna, who is and it takes place in 1991. So she wakes up from a nightmare on her 17th birthday of being burned at the stake, which ties into the whole plot line of the story. And as of that moment, her abilities feel heightened. So she's always considered herself kind of an outcast, kind of weird stuff happening to her. And then like it sort of magnified after that moment. And she finds out from her 2 dads at the time. So she's sorry, I'm going to say that again. She finds out from her 2 dads that she actually inherited these special abilities from her birth mother, who she didn't really know existed. They had always told her that she was a surrogate. It was a surrogate story. Like it was kind of like neatly wrapped in a bow, although at the time it wasn't really something that was common, of course. She was made fun of for having 2 dads. So she kind of sets out to find her birth mother. So she thinks she's located in Northern Ireland, and she tries to find she finds a way there from Boston, and she has a companion with her, and it's kind of a journey of self-discovery, magic along the way, and and a prophecy tied to it all, of course.
Oh, of course. No, I love that. The young adult is like very special to me. I love writing young adult stories because it's like the time in your life where it's not just about new experiences, but it's about like figuring out who you are and who you want to be. And I really love wrestling with those themes of like doing what's right, not what's easy, and everyday, like the kind of everyday courage people have and stuff like that, and everyday magic. And as soon as you said like a journey of discovery, I'm like,
It really
stories like that.
Well, yeah, when you're that age, it's these characters who give you the courage to be who you want to be. They give you permission to be different, or and to I'm sorry, I lost it.
Yeah, no, it's so easy because like peer pressure is such a big thing, and your brain's not fully formed, and it's so easy to be like, oh, I'm gonna go with the crowd even though I know it's wrong. But characters like this, like having good role models, is like so important, because then it does give you the courage to be like, no, I'm not gonna bully this kid just because everyone else is, or whatever the situation may be. Like, I get a particular thorn in my back when I see like role models for like it's a young adult story, and that it's like, but it's not a good role model, and it's just like a Mary Sue, and I'm like, what? No, we need like we need to be inspiring and badass.
I think we know what those books meant to us when we were that age. They were everything to us at that age. So I think turning around and being that for somebody else is the best feeling in the world.
It is. Oh, I really try with the life lessons, and without hitting you over the head with it, of course. But
right.
There's quite a lot of environmentalism, and it's the early 90s, right? It's an interesting time. It's pivotal.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that. I love I read a lot of new age books too. They're very inspiring to me. So a lot of the realism type magic, let's say, like law of attraction and that sort of thing. I'm saying it in modern terms. I don't use the law of attraction in the book, but just to say those concepts are sort of weaved into the magic of in this world. Like, so it
Right,
has a
absolutely.
sense of realism. It's not like she's throwing fireballs kind of thing. But
Right. No, that makes perfect sense though, because yeah, like synchronicities, coincidences, like all this stuff is kind of a
exactly.
magic of its own. Yeah.
Synchronicities is a huge thing. Actually, that's very funny when
Yeah.
you say that. Use it for
Yeah. So getting back on topic, what are you reading now?
Oh, I'm in. When I write, I read a lot of nonfiction and a lot of research books.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
oh God, I have quite a few Scottish history books that I'm into right
Yeah.
now. One of them was written by my guide that I went to when I went to Orkney.
Nice. Yeah.
And I am reading another nonfiction. It's on my nightstand. I don't remember. Something about stoicism.
Okay.
So I kind of get out of my genre when I'm writing. Yeah.
Right. So we're working on book 3 then, or?
Yes, I am.
Oh, how exciting! Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun time. It's the beginning. It's the romance period. It's the honeymoon period, and I'll be frustrated soon enough.
Right. The shiny new idea is it's still shiny. That always helps. I think that's why the middle is so hard, because the shininess has worn off, and you're just like trying to, like I said, get through and make these difficult decisions, and it just doesn't feel as fun.
Just get rusty there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that the tricky middle part, because you're like, I know how I want it to end. I know how I want it to end, but how?
How do you get there?
Do I get there?
How?
Yes.
Yeah.
Normal people will never understand the struggle. I say normal people because they are blessed with not having this
Just the bug.
this horrible need to write. This
Yes.
consuming need.
I know, it's so funny because when you talk to writers, it's so funny because they both simultaneously love writing the most and hate writing more than anything else. You know what I mean? And that's like when you ask like what's the best feeling to a writer, they're like having written, not writing, but having written is the best feeling, because writing itself can be an ordeal.
I think you've solved the like Rubik's cube in my brain. Like that's exactly
Right.
it. Why do I write when I'm frustrated all the time? Because it's nice after the fact.
Right. You feel so accomplished and excited, but the actual act of writing can be a lot of pulling hair and gritting your teeth to get through it. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I was asked once, like, but because I was having a very like frustrated like week or something, and my husband's like, "Are you sure you want to be writing?" And I was like, "Don't ever ask me that again."
Yes. I hate this, but I will fight to keep it. Yeah. Exactly.
We have stories to tell, and we're going to tell them.
Yes.
Right.
It's so important, especially I'm gonna sound so old, like this day and age with technology.
Yeah, right.
It's too much. It's too much. I think the robots, it's a little bit much. So let's keep our humanity a little longer. Let's keep telling our stories. We have them in our heads for a reason. It's gonna change someone's mindset or idea, or it'll do something. It'll inspire someone. We need to keep doing it.
Right. I know like people argue like when does civilization start? And obviously it starts when we make tools and stuff to help us out. But I find that like for me, civilization is like when we start making up stories to explain stuff, and we start passing down those stories and have a history of our people and all that kind of stuff. Like to me, like storytelling is such an integral part of being a human and humanity. Yeah.
Oh, I just got shivers. Yes. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So, the robots can do a lot for us, but like let us like I just want to keep creating art. Like don't take that away from me, please. Like
where robots need to come in. They need to do our chores. They need to
Yes.
Clean the house for me, please.
Can they fold my laundry, please?
Exactly. Like why are we they should be thinking for us? Like, come on, like they should be sweeping the floor.
No, it's very true. Because like it's one of the founding fathers who said that I do the art of war so that my son can be a lawyer, so that his son can make art. Like the idea is that as civilization progresses, like the ideal that people do is they make art, you know what I mean? Like when they don't have to worry about war and jobs and all that fun
Money.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just make art and like don't take that away from us. Take away the boring jobs, the
You made
menial
me,
stuff that yeah.
yes, you made me think of Neil Gaiman. I don't know if you've ever seen his like famous speech that it was a what do you call those ceremony, like at a grad ceremony, the keynote.
Oh yeah, yes.
And he says, and it's a whole thing about making good art, make good art, and it's just so inspiring. And I'll like watch it once a year because it's all the feels, you know.
Yeah, I'll have to
Such
check
good.
that out. Yeah,
Oh, you
keynote
have to,
speakers.
you know, if you just do it now.
Yeah,
It's so good.
I will. I'll watch it tonight. Um, and then we're gonna wrap up. I guess I'm gonna ask you one of my favorite questions, which people really don't like this question because
Oh,
it has the word hate in it. But what writing advice do you hate? Like either did not gel with you, or you just don't think it's really great to apply with a broad stroke.
I think, I sort of touched upon it before, but maybe I can expand.
Yeah.
I do hate when people say write for market. That's what I was sort of
Right.
saying earlier. Um, write for market, like write what people want to read, write what's trendy, that sort of thing. Like, or if people impose rules, like you can't mix these genres, you should be doing these tropes. It's like I really want to say like please go out of the box. Like I feel like my book has all kinds of, like, it's a bit of historical fiction, it's a bit of urban fantasy, it's magical realism, it's like it's okay. It doesn't have to fall perfectly into a category. So
Right.
yeah, I think just you can create your own genres. I feel like steampunk is its own weird thing that became a genre.
Yes.
So well, I don't know when it happened. I don't know anything about like the development of steampunk, but it's just the first thing that came to mind as to things that don't seem to go together at all, and somehow it's
Right.
a genre now. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess
Right.
I agree with that. I feel like the big retailers, they want to put labels on the books so that they know how to market them. But humans
Right.
don't really work that way. We like to steal bits and bits and bits and create something completely new. And then, they're like, what is that? And you're like, I don't know, a monster?
I don't know.
Right. I don't know, but I love him. Like,
No, but he's beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel like I love books that show me something new.
Yeah.
And challenge me or teach me or,
Yeah.
um, I don't think I want more and more and more of the same,
No.
I have a hard time with some YA books now because they're a lot of the same thing. I'm not, there are of course such great ones out there. Please don't hate me for saying this.
Right.
But yeah, people are kind of flocking towards the same, and I don't pick those up. I'm like, I want to see something kind of much weirder. I don't know.
Right. No. I think that like with trends they get oversaturated very quickly and then you move on to the next trend. And so yeah, you don't always want to be chasing the trend because if you don't time it correctly anyways, like you're missing out on that audience because they're like vampires, like they come in and out of fashion every 20 years. Because we get so many vampire stories and then we get sick of it and we have to forget about vampires for a while and then somebody writes a great vampire story because they're passionate about it and they come back on in fashion.
Well, I remember talking to someone during the peak of Twilight of popularity. And they say, I work in the publishing industry and we are already picking up, they're like mermaids. Mermaids are going to be the next big thing. We're picking up mermaid books. Nobody wants more vampire books. Like that's done. So like she was in the middle of the trend, already plotting the next trend that they were going to push. And I remember being kind of bothered by that of like, well, but
just go with the story.
I didn't like the idea that somebody else was telling me like what I would be reading next and what I would be loving next and what everyone would be doing next. I just it felt a little bit controlling.
It does. I don't even remember. Did the mermaid trend happen? Was I there?
I don't think it did. I think she was wrong.
My rabbit's looking at me like, are you gonna give me a treat? Because you're just there not giving me anything.
Yeah, I don't think mermaids hit that vampire peak, but like there's a few Disney mermaid shows and we're never not gonna love mermaids.
That's true. So yeah, I think it's more about the story that uses these like characters more than the creatures themselves. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say though, on the note of don't write just because it's a trend, marketing is still very important. I don't want to say like don't do it.
Oh no, it is.
There's so we can do, of course, a whole episode on ways to market your book, or many episodes. I think a whole season on it, honestly.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something you have to work into the fact that you're an author, whether you're traditional or indie, you're marketing yourself and your book. So
Yes. All right. We do want to give you an opportunity to tell us where we can find out more about you and your books online. So go ahead and share your socials and your website, anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is ktanglehart.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter. I'll get more into Neolithic history and magical spots in Ireland and Scotland, witchy things and magical tidbits. And of course, at KT_Anglehart on my Instagram and on my Facebook, where I hang out sometimes. And oh yes, my books are available in any bookstore, and of course Amazon. So yeah, just go get them. The Wise One and the Twin Flame is number 2, which was just released this November.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, on the new release. And thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you. You guys are so insightful and you ask such great questions.
This is our favorite thing. Like, just talk to other authors about writing and stories. And
yes, we love it so much.
You make all the difference. Humanity needs you. So please continue doing it.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone listening along at home. And remember, there's more than one way up a mountain. If you're interested in being a guest on our show, you can find us on social media at The Tell Not Show, or you can email us, thetellnotshow@gmail.com. Thanks again. And we'll catch you next week.
Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider subscribing and liking. We appreciate all the support. Julia J.K. Allen is an author, editor, and coach, and can be found at hijinksrudder.com.
Kirsha Fox is an author, avid reader, gamer, and mother to 4, and you can find her at kirshafox.com. Thanks and see you next time.